adventure is starting. We're at Logan Airport in the kids' play area. My son and I are hanging out here until we board our flight. Also looking outside at the planes. So what we've got ahead of us is we have to fly to JFK first, and then have an overnight flight to Frankfurt. Then we have to take a couple-hour train to Stuttgart. Then the dealership is picking us up there, and we're driving to Dornstetten, I think it's called, the little town where the dealership is. So we've got a long night and day ahead of us, but hopefully it goes well. We're now in Frankfurt. We survived the red eye. No issues at all, actually. Axel did really well. Taking a 3-year-old solo on a red eye may not have been the smartest idea, but it worked out great. He did awesome. Just a little bit of fussing, but also got about 4 hours of sleep. So hopefully today goes okay. But glad to be here. And I think well, maybe not the hardest part's over. We'll see how the train goes next. Thank God they have luggage carts everywhere in the airports and the train stations, or else this would be a much harder lug. We are going to go see the blue RS2 for the first time. What are we going to see right now, Axel?
Audi.
The Audi. There it is. I can see it. Oh, and there's a Porsche 356.
That's the blue Audi.
There's the blue Audi. Yeah, there it is. Do you want to go see it?
Yes.
Wow. Look at it. Let's go look at it. What do you think, buddy? Wow, it looks beautiful, Alexander. Love it.
Look at that Porsche.
Yeah, that looks like our 964, doesn't it?
Look at this.
Wow.
Look at this one.
Yeah, that's a turbo. Wow. It looks amazing, Alexander. I love it.
Look at this.
And given how old it is and how many miles, it looks very, very nice. Wow. Here's a view around the interior of the RS2. And it's a good looking car, particularly for 30 years old. What I particularly love is it's got the blue inserts in the doors, the blue inserts in the seats, and what I particularly love is it's got the real carbon fiber. And you can see the blue fibers in the weave. I think it's funny that Doug DeMuro bought one of these and actually had the seats reupholstered. They were black originally, but reupholstered in the blue Alcantara. And he had wrap covering, like body wrap covering, put on the interior trim pieces to make it look like carbon fiber. But this is all the real deal. Some cool other features is it's a 6-speed. It's got some nice subdials down here. It's got the original radio, I think, because I've got the original, the brochure for it. And then I really like the dials because all the numbers and indicators look black, but when you turn the lights on, they're all red. So that's a nice feature. I'm not driving, but it's the first startup. It sounds good, running. Looks great. Here are my first impressions of the RS2. I just picked it up. I'm driving just a little ways to stay the night, but I'm getting to drive through the Black Forest, which is a cool place to test it out. Overall, as a first impression, it is awesome. It's a lot better than I thought it would be. I drove one of these a few months ago, and I don't know if the engine was just more tired or what, but it wasn't as punchy as this one. This one's got a lot of pickup and go. And the spool of the turbo and the 90s turbo lag is fantastic. It also makes awesome pop-off valve sounds, the type Wookiee-esque sounds when the turbo comes off boost. So I love that. I think the one I drove before didn't necessarily make those sounds. When I was talking with Alexander at Classic Cars Dornstetten, he said that the car was kind of spongy. It wasn't as tight feeling as what I was probably used to driving a 911. I don't feel that at all. Certainly it's not as tight as my race car, but that's got crazy stiff sway bars in it, and probably 3 times stiffer suspension than stock. But compared to my 964, it's pretty similar. They're both all-wheel drive cars. This definitely makes more power, but it's a heavier car. But this thing, when it gets on boost, it is awesome. It is properly fast. It's also cornering quite well. I haven't really pushed it and felt when it starts to understeer, but it feels really good. There's nothing squeaking. They replaced some bushings in the sway bars, so that's all feeling tight. The brakes are good. Overall, I'm super impressed with this thing. Here we go. We're on a mountain road in the Black Forest, single lane road, very twisty, and so hopefully we can open this up a little bit. And so it's funny, the car's still quick below 4,000 RPM, but then when you stomp on it and it goes above 4,000 RPM, oh boy, it's awesome. So I don't know if you heard that, the pop-off valve, but oh man, this thing it's awesome. It is fast, like 911 type fast. It is really cool. So I'm in second gear right now, and it's a 6-speed. I'm extremely impressed with the condition of the synchronizers. This car has 200,000 miles on it, and I think it was just driven on the highway for most of its life, because the engine feels great. It sounds great. Synchronizers are great. The chassis even feels good, like the suspension and everything. So I am so impressed. Another thing I wanted to talk about, and I'll do a bigger review on the outside, is I love how the car's not perfect. It's not beaten up, but it's got 200,000 miles on it. But it's kind of like my 964 in that you can see it's been used. The bumpers have been bumped into a couple things. There's a few paint blemishes, like blemishes in the clear coat, but it's still the coolest spec of one of these cars. It's in great shape, so that's my favorite type of classic car, because I don't have to handle it with white gloves. I can use it and have fun with it, and if it gets some more wear and tear on it, I don't feel terrible. I'm not, desecrating this like perfect new car. I actually don't really like new cars. I find them stressful to maintain looking perfect. Another thing I'm so impressed with, I've mentioned it in the past, is Classic Cars Dornstetten. Alexander, who runs the business, was so transparent and really wanted me to be an informed buyer, told me about everything about the car. And not only that, they estimated it would be 1,200 euro to do the service work, and they did so much more than they originally anticipated. The parts were more, they did a lot more labor. Like, for example, they replaced the air conditioning control unit in this car. They pulled it off another RS2, and who knows what one of those would cost, but the guy who owns the business had another RS2, and this one had been rebuilt in the past. The AC had been fixed, and they were committed to making everything work before I bought it. So I really appreciate that attention to detail and attention to service. I've never had that in a car dealer, particularly used car dealer, in the past. Really wanting me to get something that I was going to love, and boy, did they do it. This thing is so cool and awesome. Here we go. Here's another back road that I think we can take a bit quicker. So, oh, that's cool. Got a little bit of slip in the tires. another thing I like about this car is it's quite nostalgic for me, because my mom had an A4 Avant, and that was such an amazing car. It wasn't a hopped up RS or R car, or sorry, S car, but it was still quick, and the balance was amazing. It didn't understeer or oversteer, and I'd whip it around the back roads in New Hampshire and Vermont, and if it started sliding, it'd be perfectly sideways. So I love that this RS2 is kind of the daddy of that whole era. It's such the genesis of, well, it literally is the genesis of all the RS cars, but particularly the small, fast station wagons Audi made. It's the pinnacle of those. So, man, I am loving it. This is so cool to rip around these back roads. It's pretty sure-footed too. I'm quite impressed. And then you, whoa, slam on the gas, about 4,000 RPM. It pulls very hard. I would say it pulls harder than my 964. I think because of the turbo. It doesn't have as nice kind of linear delivery of power as a naturally aspirated engine, but man, it's fantastic. I am quite happy so far with this thing. This road's a little rough too, and it's just soaking that up, having no problems at all. I'm really looking forward to sharing a lot more of my adventures with this thing over the next couple months that we're going to use it in Europe. I think we're going to be revisiting a lot of the great Alps passes that we took with the 964 5 years ago. But now, in a practical family hauler. This road is tight. There's not even a single line in the middle of the road, and come around a corner and a car's coming around, it's a little bit tight. It's all good. I want to show what these roads are like through the Black Forest. Super fun. They're all second gear twisties. Wrapping up day 2 in the RS2, and it's still fantastic. I got to drive it a lot over the last 2 days, but I haven't gotten to drive it west towards the UK, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Upside is, had a great visit to the Unimog Museum this morning, and then the Porsche Museum this afternoon, and got some awesome shots of the car right out in front of the Porsche factory. Not exactly the same factory where this was made. This was made at a more specialist factory in Zuffenhausen, where they make their race cars and where they made the 959. But it's the factory where they make the 911. And then also some cool pictures in front of the Porsche Museum. But anyway, I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about, I would say, a public health issue that is near and dear to my heart, and maybe an affliction I suffer from, which is automotive masochism. So I am saying this because who in their right mind flies to Europe with their 3-year-old son, buys a 30-year-old car with 200,000 miles on it, unless they're an automotive masochist? And I definitely am. And I am because I knew there was going to be stuff wrong with this. You know, it's an old car, it's an Audi. Audis aren't super reliable. At least it's a Porsche, and it's a bit more reliable. But as soon as I drove it yesterday, and pulled off, filled up with gas, the first big issue popped up. I'll now demonstrate how the car does not like to start again when it's warm. So it's running right now. I'm going to turn it off. And now let's try to start it. And I'm turning the key now. Oh, it did start, but you could hear it was, yeah, it's pretty tough. I know about that issue because I've had it with other cars. The issue is the starter motor's dying. And I've had it in the past, and I actually took the starter motor apart off one of my other cars once and sanded down the brushes and improved the connection, and it worked fine. What happens is the brushes can get all kind of gunked up with carbon deposits and other junk, and it increases the electrical resistance, and so the starter does not have as much torque that it produces because not as much current's flowing through it, and can't turn over the engine. And when the car gets hot, that gets even worse. Resistance goes up, and that's what I noticed yesterday. The car starts cold, okay, starts a little weak, but it does start okay. But when it's hot, like you just saw, it's terrible. It won't turn over at all. And you have to like hold the starter, the ignition switch on for it to start. So the reason I'm still in Germany, and the reason I got to go to the Unimog Museum and the Porsche Museum today, is tomorrow I'm bringing it back to the dealer. They were able to get the starter motor for this car, which is great. It's more common than for the RS2. And they're going to install it tomorrow morning, and then we're going to have to cannonball it across France to get to the UK for Goodwood on Sunday. Today is Friday. We're going to cannonball tomorrow, Saturday, get to Goodwood on Sunday. Hopefully they could fix the other issue that's popped up today when I got to actually drive this on the Autobahn at quick speeds, which is a resonance in the front left brake system. It's not a hung up brake pad. That would make the car pull one way, and I'd feel it. It's, I think, probably the brake pad resonating against a rough spot on the edges of the rotor. The rotors are older on this. There's lips that have been kind of ground into them by past brake pads, and I think this has new brake pads. So I've been trying to do some hard braking to get rid of it, but it's not going away. I definitely know it's a braking system because if I just slightly touch the brake, the resonance goes away. You probably can't hear it on this video, but it's shown up slightly a bit. And I think maybe putting some grease behind the brake pad, which you often do, could dampen the resonance out. Maybe we could just lightly take a file around the lip of the brake pad. You don't want to go too aggressive on that, but that may knock off any sort of gunk that's causing the resonance. So 2 issues. All in all, not that big. Starter's easy to replace. You can get at it from under the car pretty easily. And then this brake thing is just more annoying than anything else. Now I can really hear it. And then I touch the brake, immediately goes away. I don't know if you can hear that in video, but it's quite annoying on Autobahn speeds. Upside though of Autobahn speeds, this thing is awesome at speed. We took it not crazy fast, but good clip, and it is stable. I had heard that Doug DeMuro in one of his videos, he talked about taking it at quick speeds, and it feels so planted, so stable, and I totally agree. It's a really nice Autobahn car, and when the brakes aren't resonating, it's pretty quiet. So I'm really happy about it all in all, and man, the turbo boost. I have a friend who says boost is quite addictive, and he's absolutely right. It's pretty cool to be on the Autobahn going 80 plus miles an hour and stomp on it, and it still has a lot of oomph in 6th gear to accelerate. So all in all, great car. Give an update tomorrow after we fix the starter and hopefully the brakes. It is the beginning of day 3 of this crazy journey, and we started it off by picking up, or actually the car got delivered back to our hotel. I can't say enough good stuff about classic Cars Dornstetten. We dropped the car at them last night. They picked up the keys at our hotel early this morning, fixed the starter, fixed the brakes, and then dropped the car. And so far, so good. We've been driving for about an hour this morning, no issues. I don't know if you could tell out of the windows, but we're in a stunning section of, I think, still the Black Forest, but beautiful twisty back roads. So we're on our way right now west to the UK to go to the Goodwood Revival tomorrow. And I'd say today's really the day where the rubber hits the road. We were supposed to leave yesterday morning for this trip because it's 1,000 kilometers, but because of the starter and the brakes, had to get that fixed, and we're gonna cannonball it all in one day. So this is our first big test of the car over long distances. It's feeling great. No issues, starts right up perfectly. Brakes, no sounds at all so far. They just filed down the pads, I think, or broke the edges of the pads, as well as broke the lip off the rotor and filed that down. So hopefully that all goes well. A funny anecdote from this morning is I was driving away from Classic Cars Dornstetten after thanking them for doing all the work really quickly. And I was about 10 minutes out of town when I turned on the radio, and it didn't work at all. The antenna seemed to be disconnected, and there was a little bit of foam that's used for either insulation or padding between plastic parts in the dashboard, and it was on the passenger footwell. So I thought maybe they went in and did some more tweaking on the air conditioning system or something this morning, and it seemed that the radio antenna had gotten unhooked. So we turned all the way back around, went back, and then literally just 100 meters from the workshop, radio kicks on, starts working perfectly. And so I talked to them about it, and apparently it's because we're in the Black Forest, and in the valleys, they're so deep that the radio signals get cut off. So that's what seems to have happened. And hopefully we have a working radio from now on, but I think we do. I think it was just an effect of the mountains that it didn't work. We successfully made it all the way across France without any issues. The brakes were perfect. The starter was perfect. It was really uneventful, other than almost running out of gas, but that was my fault, not the car's. We're in Calais now, which is where you enter the Channel Tunnel, which is the turducken of transportation. You get to drive your car inside a train that then goes under the water over to England, which is an amazing feat of engineering. We also just got through UK customs with no issue, and I'm always a little worried about that because I'm an American guy traveling with a kid in a vintage foreign car on German transport plates, but it's all legal. It's all within the rules, and is another testament to that you can do this too. You can buy a vintage car in Europe, drive it all around and insure it, register it totally legally, and enjoy not only the EU, but also take it into the UK. So if you've never seen the Channel Tunnel, I'll film it as we go in. It's an amazing marvel of engineering, and pretty cool to think about driving a car right into a train that then 35 minutes later drops you off in the UK. Okay, here we go, boarding the train. It's amazing, you never even see the ocean in this process. You would never know that you're going underneath the water. Oh, we might be on the upper deck. Cool. The first opening is a ramp. I hope we're on the upper deck. Cool. I have never been on the upper deck, so here we go. Until they get up. Here we go. Ooh, that is tight. You would not want to take like a Lamborghini on this. It's too wide. there we are, all parked up, and now we just sit for 35 minutes and wait to be over in England. So with that, we are now in the UK, getting off the train, trying to remember to drive on the left-hand side of the road now. And that's it, easy peasy. Well, it only took us 13 hours to get outside of Goodwood in the UK from Germany today. Oh man, long time. Would I recommend driving 13 hours in one day across Europe with a 3-year-old in a 30-year-old car that's pretty unreliable? Absolutely. It was awesome. And the car did great. It actually was pretty reliable. But this is a real Top Gear adventure, and I love every second of it, and I love that I'm getting to share it with my son and getting to do it in Europe and with a super cool vintage car.